On this edition of the Newsmakers, a three-pronged attack on Jacob Zuma's presidency from the former public protector. We ask if this is the end for South Africa's leader. Also on today's program, the final countdown. The presidential candidates make their last attempts to woo voters. Could the Latino vote swing the result? And which way? And in picture this, protests return to Hong Kong streets as Beijing blocks the appointment of two pro-independence politicians. Hello and welcome to the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garta. South African President Jacob Zuma always said he wanted his day in court to dispel the latest allegations against him. And now he's likely to get it. Over the next 6 months, a commission will investigate the initial findings of the state capture report. Zuma has had 783 corruption charges leveled at him while president. So far, none have stuck. Neither has the Nkandla scandal or allegations of rape. But the state capture report will provide his sternest test to date. Our newsmaker today is Jacob Zuma, as we ask if this is the beginning of the end for the South African president.
Zuma must go! Zuma must go! Zuma must go! Ngisho noma ngathiwa ngiyaboshwa namhlanje. Hayi ngijwayele ukuboshwa mina. Ngadonsa ishumi leminyaka ejele. Angeke ungesabise ngejele.
Defiance from South Africa's president in the face of mounting accusations of corruption. Last week, the former public protector released a 355-page report detailing accusations Zuma's presidency had been captured by wealthy Indian businessmen. The report stopped short of saying crimes had been committed, but suggested a judge investigate whether Zuma, cabinet members and some state companies had acted improperly in their dealings with the Gupta family. Zuma had tried to block the report's release, but dropped the challenge. He and the Guptas deny any wrongdoing.
Space set democratic debate asekho. Ispace esikhona is court arguments by lawyers. Akuyona democracy le. A misinterpretation of democracy.
This is the latest scandal to hit Zuma. In March, South Africa's highest court ruled he had violated the constitution by failing to repay public funds used to upgrade his private residence. And in the past, he has also been accused of money laundering, fraud and racketeering.
Zuma must go! Zuma must go!
The call for Zuma to go is growing louder, and some opposition politicians say he should face criminal charges. South Africa's Finance Minister Gordon had been accused of fraud. Last week, the charges were dropped. Gordon was accused of fraudulently approving an $80,000 severance payment to a deputy tax commissioner 10 years ago. The prosecutor reviewing the case found there was no criminal intent. Gordon said the allegations were without merit and politically motivated. He had been seen to be standing up to President Zuma in cabinet, warning against corruption becoming rampant. And some analysts say these charges were an attempt by Zuma to get rid of one of his challengers. Zuma faces a vote of no confidence in Parliament this week. He has already survived 2 such votes, but in the face of these latest allegations, will he be able to survive this time? Yvette McCullough, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now from Johannesburg is Mzwanele Manyi. He's the president of Progressive Professionals Forum and an ANC member. And from London is Paul Bell. He's a South Africa analyst and communications consultant. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Paul Bell, let me start with you. Has this state capture report been damaging to President Jacob Zuma?
Inevitably, it's been damaging. There are a whole raft of allegations. All of this has been brewing for months. The former public protector, Madonsela, is a very well-respected figure who has done her job with great skill and integrity. And when a report as damning as this comes out, the public cannot help but take very serious notice of it. alongside a long history of evasion by the president of attempts to bring him to court on up to 793 charges relating to the arms deal. So yes, I mean, this all just compounds a serious, long-standing problem with the president's credibility and legitimacy.
Zwanele Manyi, for most people who read either an executive summary of the report, journalism about the report, or the 300-plus pages, they seem to come away with the idea that, at the very least, the president sanctioned the use of state companies to enrich himself and his allies, particularly the Gupta family. Would you accept that?
Yeah, let's start by saying I'm speaking here as the founder of the Decolonization Foundation. Although I am that other title, but sure. Right now I'm speaking as the founder of the Decolonization Foundation. But I think I must make this point. I'm very disappointed that educated people can pronounce the way my fellow panelist is pronouncing when we're sitting with a document here that has got observations, has got no findings, to then have what you are going to call a damning anything when there are no findings. I just find that premature, and I just find that malicious, and I find it unconstitutional. Because the document that we have right now, in fact, I don't call it a report, I call it a document of complaints. What you have here, you have a document that has just formalized all the complaints that have been in the media space, and this document has not shed an iota of light in terms of the validity of these allegations.
Okay, so let's...
All what you have in here...
If you'd allow me, let me drill down into one specific thing.
Allegations.
Sure, let's drill down into something specific from Jonas, the Deputy Finance Minister, who said he was offered the Finance Ministry job, or Finance Minister job, by the Guptas at the Saxon World compound via a bribe of 600 million rand, about $45 million. He said they offered him $45 million, he turned it down. So that's not necessarily just sort of conjecture. This is from the horse's mouth. Do you believe that he's telling the truth or that he's lying?
This is what the investigation was meant to investigate. We are sitting here today. We are not any wiser. This is the issue.
But nobody's ever allowed this to be investigated.
Today. Whatever he said, when then...
Paul, give Mr. Manyi a chance.
Can I just make the point? Whatever he said way back then, and what is written in these documents of complaints, it's exactly the same thing. Now, the outgoing public protector, instead of doing an investigation, she goes around on a blaming charade here. She then says the executive did not investigate. The executive does not have the brief to investigate themselves, as it were. This is why we have a Chapter 9 institution that, in terms of Section 182 of our own constitution, she has the power to investigate. And she gets given this, she gets given the budget to investigate. She comes back and she says the executive did not investigate, and then she makes a recommendation that we must have a judicial inquiry. In fact, the only thing concrete about that whole bundle of documents is, that recommendation to say a judicial inquiry must be appointed.
Okay, let's bring in Paul Bell.
But even that,
sure,
the way in which she says this must be done is also unconstitutional.
Okay,
in fact,
you made the point, you said that. Paul Bell, are you convinced by any of that?
This is the way the ANC handles everything, with spurious, legalistic jargon that actually means nothing to anybody with any common sense. The executive has resisted every effort by Parliament and the courts. When I say Parliament, I should say the opposition in Parliament and the courts, to frustrate any investigation, even going to the lengths of trying to investigate cabinet ministers such as Pravin Gordhan. And now we see that others are also in the frame. I mean, when is this nonsense going to stop? When is the ANC going to wake up and realize that it is completely losing the trust that was placed in it by the people of South Africa 22 years ago?
Zwanele Manyi?
Well, I don't understand this because there's no evidence of what he's talking about. In South Africa, we've got a very sound justice system. The finance minister that he alluded to was also taken through that process, and that process alone, without any public pressure, exonerated the minister. We have a working system here. We have empirical evidence. Since as recent as 2014, the President Zuma-led ANC received 62%. As recent as the last local government election, the general number, ANC is still in majority. African National Congress in this country continues to enjoy more support than any other party in terms of empirical evidence. Yes, indeed. This other panelist
None of that has got anything
all
to
kinds
do
of emotions
with
and
whether
everything.
President Zuma should stand trial and be made to account for the allegations that have been arranged against him. Now hundreds and hundreds of allegations.
What President Zuma,
this business of state capture
what President Zuma is involved in
is so profound and goes so deep. And it is quite clear that there are people within the ANC who fear that they too have something to lose if President Zuma is dislodged. Only this weekend, he has defied the top six of the National Executive and told them he will not step down. There is absolutely no question that the ANC is deeply riven by this issue, and unless it is resolved, the ANC risks losing power at the next election. It risks it.
But it's terrible. No, he's actually lying. There's no way where President Zuma refused anything. I would like to see the record of that. That is just a blue lie. Fact of the matter is that the National Executive Committee of the ANC
and you know that from your position in the decolonization.
I don't know that for sure. No, wait, let me finish.
Committee.
Stop lying. Stop lying. The National Executive Committee of the ANC came out with a public statement.
Telling you what has been widely reported in your newspapers.
They came out with a public statement to say, they came out in public, the National Executive Committee of the ANC, to say they have looked at all matters, they've taken collective responsibility after the local government elections, and they are proceeding to improve the quality of lives of everyone. They admitted some of the mistakes of the ANC.
Not before time is all I can say, but that has nothing to do with what was discussed over the weekend.
What we're discussing now, we're discussing a document of complaints. This is what we're discussing. This document has got no findings.
It's not complaints, they're very
give me a
serious
second
allegations.
to come in there.
Zuma.
Sure. Mr. Mani, in the aftermath of it,
just allegations.
Mr. Mani, in the aftermath of it, there's been some interesting investigative journalism done by multiple media outlets, including interviews with John Maseko, the Gupta driver, for a period of time. He kept a logbook of visitors to the Saxonwold compound of the Guptas. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that visiting the Guptas means that anyone has done anything wrong. But besides high-ranking ministers, you were also on the list of visitors to the compound. Just to sort of tick the box, just to be absolutely certain, Mr. Maseko says you were visiting in 2011. Is that true?
He's talking rubbish. But what I can tell you is that Guptas don't have leprosy. I don't have a problem mixing with the Guptas. I attended the Gupta wedding. Recently, they had a Diwali thing. I attended that. In fact, I've just accepted another invite from them. They're going to do a Sati Awards. So for me to mix with them is not a crime. But that specific time that this
so one would expect you to be saying what you're saying.
Paul Bell, let me ask you if you believe the ESCOM chief executive who said that after cell phone records showed that he'd visited the Gupta compound many times over a 2-year period. He said that he was visiting a shebeen in Saxonwold and that he was not visiting the Guptas. Do you believe him?
No, he's lying.
Mr. Mani, do you believe that?
It's as simple as that.
Mr. Mani, do you believe that Brian Molefe was lying?
No, I think he's being misquoted. He didn't say that. Let me tell you what he said. He's being misquoted. He said that another of his colleagues called Chose was visiting a shebeen in Saxonwold. And this person said to him, Brian, they are saying to you, you went there 14 times. If they should have asked me, I've been there 20 times or whatever, many more times than you, because I'm going there to Shibin, as it were. Then Brian then said, I, as Brian, cannot confirm or deny whether I went to the Shibin or not. Those are his exact words. So this other nonsense that is being spread is actually fabrication.
Let me finally just sort of take this towards the ANC, President Zuma, and whether, going back almost to the very beginning of the debate, whether he is losing power. We've got a general election coming up in 2019. That's a long, long way from now. But Mr. Manyi, looking at how the ANC did in the local elections in August, you lost Pretoria, you lost Johannesburg, you lost Cape Town. Sure, you still have overwhelming power or an overwhelming mandate from the voters, but you're losing ground. Are you worried that this scandal is going to mean that come 2019, you're going to be much, much weaker than you are now?
No, not at all. But what the ANC is going to be doing is working very hard. I think what is the problem? The problem is the malicious media. Malicious media that, even the tone of this interview, it's a maliciousness that is out there.
What have I done to you?
Things that have not been
No, it's not malicious. It's just disgust, frankly. It's just pure disgust.
No, the other guy, the other panelist. No, this other guy that
yes,
is...
me, I'm absolutely. What you hear from me, sir, is pure disgust.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Paul Bell, it's the malicious media.
That guy is going around spreading, he's using your platform to continue spreading lies, because we're sitting here. In fact, how is captioning this thing as well? I don't know how you're going to caption it. But if this is
and you, sir, have been sitting there spreading evasion after evasion after evasion, which is typical of the entire executive and the Speaker of Parliament in this matter.
You see, he wants to speak alone now, this man.
Okay,
I think
I'm going to give you both 20 seconds to wrap up.
Well, I'd just like a chance to say something.
Okay. Zwanele Manyi, 20 seconds to wrap up, and then Paul Bell. Mr. Manyi first.
Right. We should not fool people in the world and confuse people that are watching and misconstrue observations which are generally neutral by nature and make them as if they are findings. People that say that are malicious, they are lying, and they should be thrown to jail for all I care.
Okay, Paul Bell, final word from you, please.
Well, I'm obviously very glad I'm not in the country right now, because that's clearly where I'd be for what I've just said. However, nobody wishes the ANC harm. The ANC has been the most significant political movement in South Africa's history. Should it be able to deliver good governance to the people of South Africa, well, we South Africans would do nothing but to wish it well. But if it is to do any of that, it is going to have to root out the corruption that has reached its very heart and its very head. And unless it does that, it is in serious risk of losing more support at the next election.
Okay, Paul Bell and Zwanele Manyi, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. On Wednesday, the U.S. will know Barack Obama's successor as president. With the polls neck and neck, the vote could be won or lost in the margins and minorities of society. Our correspondent Randolph Nogel has been filing a series of special reports in the lead up to the vote. Here's his final report on the impact of the Latino vote.
Dia de los Muertos is a combination of our Spanish roots with our Indian roots. Because the Aztecs honored death. In fact, to them, the afterlife was the real life. This was just in the meantime.
The Day of the Dead is about family, honoring those who've passed on. Originating in Mexico, it spread throughout Latin America, and now to the United States. Nancy Charaga is a self-proclaimed cultural preservationist. Her store in the heart of San Francisco's historic Mission District has been a pillar of the surrounding Latino community for 20 years.
I think this is a wake-up call. I don't think we should censor Trump. I think we should let him talk, because Trump's rhetoric is nothing new to immigrants. It's rhetoric that we have heard, but people won't say out loud. And so now we can really get real about the issues confronting the United States. I'm talking about racial issues.
I don't want to rip families apart. I don't want to be sending parents away from children. I don't want to see the deportation force that Donald has talked about in action in our country.
Latinos make up 17% of the U.S. population.
This is one of the most diverse areas of the city. Many people living here are immigrants. Going door to door, these young activists are helping to harness the power of San Francisco's Latino community, a potent force not just here, but nationally. Every year, 800,000 Latinos turn 18 and become eligible to vote.
While Donald Trump has appealed to Latinos and other minorities on making the economy work for them,
I'm asking today for the honor of your vote.
Hillary Clinton has repeatedly pointed to his rhetoric,
but we have some bad hombres here and we're going to get them out,
as proof she's the better choice.
The Latino vote has been cast and understood as an anti-Trump vote, and that characterization debilitates it. It doesn't put pressure on the Democratic Party to fight for our vote.
Yeah, I mean, I'm undocumented. I've been working since I was 16. I've been paying tax since I was 16. But I'm not going to get any of the benefits of Social Security.
11 million undocumented people live in the United States. Edgar is one of them. He arrived in the U.S. when he was 8 years old and has temporary amnesty from deportation under President Barack Obama's executive order named DACA, or Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals.
It's really sad that, you have people who are willing to work and that need to work, to be able to, live in this country and can't.
And if Trump wins, DACA will be gone in a flash.
Donald Trump has attracted a number of voters by connecting public fear over security and jobs with Mexican immigrants.
I think that it's a rhetoric that is specifically aimed at racializing conflicts between, underprivileged populations of workers.
With so much on the line, Latino voters could be a decisive factor in a narrowing national race and set a precedent as kingmakers in American politics. Randolph Nogle, The Newsmakers in San Francisco.
Peter Hagman joins me now from Washington, D.C. He's the President Emeritus and a Senior Fellow at the Inter-America Dialogue Policy Center. Thanks a lot for joining us, Peter. According to a Washington Post Univision national poll, Hillary Clinton is winning 67% of Hispanic voters compared with just 19% for Donald Trump. To what do you attribute that? Is it because he made it personal with many Latinos, particularly after his comments about Mexicans and them being rapists and so on?
Well, I think that was his first big issue, was anti-immigration, and that translated very quickly to anti-Hispanic, and just in time after time, speech after speech, he was very insulting, demeaning of Mexicans, and by extension, almost all Hispanic voters.
And they are voting far more frequently, or with far greater frequency than they were in 2012. So to take that point further, I ask you, is this going to swing the election in Hillary Clinton's favor?
Well, it could in a few states. A few critical states are hanging in the balance right now. State like Nevada is within 1 percentage point. Colorado is still difficult. Florida, of course. Any one of those could be determined by a very high Latino turnout.
So despite all of this, despite the fact that he's insulted many Latinos, despite the fact that Hillary Clinton's running mate Tim Kaine speaks fluent Spanish and has done so on the campaign trail, there are many Latinos on the right who would still favor Trump over Clinton. Why?
Well, that's a difficult question. There's one big block, of course, Cubans who are unhappy, Cuban Americans who are unhappy with the opening of Barack Obama to Cuba, the effort to normalize relations with the country. They're clearly a very big block that are going to vote. They're about half of probably the Cuban voters in Florida at this point, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, and that's a big chunk. And then in a variety of other states, there are Hispanic voters that have been in the United States for long periods of time. They're no longer part of the immigrant experience. They're really long-term residents, and I think they're less concerned about the immigration issue.
Peter Hagman, thank you very much for your thoughts. In today's Picture This, there have been clashes and protests on the streets of Hong Kong after China barred two pro-independence politicians from the territory's legislature. Let's take a look. You've been watching this edition of the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garda. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.